So now that we've got the sky sorted out, you guys are going to have a separate image of the stairs for the foreground. Now once again, because I only took the one image, I'm just going to now work on this as if the foreground was the separate image that had been taken. Now I've already adjusted that temperature to the 4150, and then also that tint, I've dropped that down to the +8 from where I'd started from on the other image, and I've reset all the other tabs, and I've maintained that lens profile correction as well. So if you need to, just pause the video, do that lens correction, and then quickly do the temperature adjustment to where you had it for the previous image that you would have processed. Okay, now hopefully if you've done that and you've got that starting point. Now depending on how your exposure was for your foreground, one of the first things you're going to have to do is play around with that exposure. Now Chris, for yours, I know that your foreground was actually quite bright when you took your image, so yours probably won't be too bad. For Dom and Shelley, yours may have been a bit darker, so you may have to increase your exposure. So in this instance, looking at that, I reckon, yeah, probably about that 1.2 is pretty good. Starting to get that information in the stairs, and you know, there's a bit of noise in there, but we'll play around with that next. So now that we have raised that, I'll have a look. We'll add a little bit of contrast into it. Just drop those shadows down a touch through that contrast. Now we can raise those highlights just a touch as well. And then we don't want to drag too much information out of those shadows, otherwise it will get really grainy. So I've just dropped those shadows just a touch as well. So next up, it's similar to what we did with the sky. We're going to go in and do some noise reduction, except this time, instead of focusing on the sky, we're going to focus on that foreground. Now those of you that got to capture your image before all that last light had disappeared, you're not going to have as much noise because you were still able to keep your ISO at 100, 200, whatever the case may have been. But given mine was taken a lot later, mine's going to have a fair bit more noise in it. Actually, my noise reduction settings are still there from the last time that I adjusted this image, so it's still sitting at 30. So if I take that away, you can see all that clipping that's there within the shadows, and all of that graininess that's all over the wood as a result of noise. So if I get that, drag it up once again to that 30, we've taken heaps of that noise away. So I'll pop it back, have a look at all the grain and the texture as a result of the noise, put it back up to 30, and you can see how much of that has disappeared. I'll zoom at 200 then, so bring it back to fit in view, and then we look at the image. It doesn't look too bad in this instance now, given we're going to be sharing it on social media or whatever. Okay, now that I've done that noise reduction, what I'm probably going to do now is I'll go back over to that basics tab. I'm going to add a little bit of clarity on it because it's looking, as a result of that noise reduction, it's looking quite soft, that foreground. So I'll bring it up to about 20, and then once again we can see that softness has kind of faded away a bit. We've lost some focus on those stairs in the foreground because obviously we're using that infinity focal point, but once we get into Photoshop, I'm probably going to crop across there anyway because I didn't balance the frame particularly well. because I was rushing the composition. Okay, so from here we'll go down and we'll open the image and start working on that foreground in Photoshop.